Back in August of 2020, I made my top 20 roller coasters video. My opinions about these coasters have remained the same, but I wanted to explain why my opinions are the way they are. I came up with a cool twist for this video where I discuss the best element on each of these wonderful coasters. This is my top 20 with the best element on each coaster. Intimidator at Carowinds. The best element is the first airtime hill. Intimidator is a B&M hypercoaster, so it's made for airtime. The train rockets through every valley, which makes it surprisingly intense in some parts. While this is the weakest hyper on the list due to the abundance of trims and less airtime than other hypers, it has one great element. This element is the first airtime hill. The reason for this is because the train is going the fastest here, and it provides the best airtime on the ride. For a whole 5 seconds, passengers are flying out of their seats in a very thrilling moment of negative Gs. 19. Raptor at Cedar Point. The best element is the final helix. Raptor at Cedar Point looks ginormous on the midway. It absolutely hauls through its course, with almost too many positive Gs. While there isn't any airtime or hang time, the snappy transitions and very intense valleys make up for it. One element in particular is very intense. This element is the final helix. The train rockets through this helix and it makes my legs go numb every time. It also feels like the helix goes on forever and your picture gets taken here, so there are always huge smiles on everyone's face through this crazy element. This element reminds me a lot of the Legends helix, full of laterals and almost too intense. 18. Orion at Kings Island. The best element is the speed hill. Orion at Kings Island is the weakest of the Gigas because of its smaller size. Orion does have a great layout. It's full of speed and floater airtime. The treble clef is a blast, and the helix is rather intense for a Giga. But the best element is the speed hill. The speed hill on Orion is full of floater airtime. During this airtime hill, the train has a ton of speed, so riders are launched out of their seats for over 5 seconds of pure floater. It's a huge rush that leaves people coming back for more. 17. Lightning Run at Kentucky Kingdom. The best element is the last run of airtime hills. Lightning Run is a very short coaster, but in that short time it packs a punch. Lightning Run thunders through many different elements. First, an ejector hill. After an overbank, the ride goes into a spaghetti bowl, full of sideways airtime and wacky transitions. The final element is the best. This element is a large run of airtime hills that ejects riders out of their seats multiple different times. Each moment is stronger than the last, and the final hill whips riders to the side. It's a massive rush. 16. Storm Runner at Hershey Park. The best element is the flying snake dive. This intimate accelerator located at Hershey Park is quite the rush. The launch is out of this world, and the top hat provides a lot of floater airtime. A large drop leads into a huge inversion, which provides quite a bit of hang time. Then, the wackiest and best element on the ride occurs. This element is one of a kind, and it's called a flying snake dive. After an ejector pop, the ride whips through a barrel roll and dives straight down through a wacky twist. This element is whippy and fast, and is a great way to end off the short coaster. 15. Diamondback at Kings Island. The best element is the first drop. Diamondback is the definition of a great hyper. Diamondback, while it has a rattle, is so much better than Intimidator. It's a much longer ride, and it has overall better airtime. The best part of the ride is that first drop. In my opinion, it provides the best floater on the ride, especially in the back. This drop almost feels like a dive coaster drop in the front row. It hangs guests before dropping down in the floater-filled drop. 14. Candemonium at Hershey Park. The best part is the first airtime hill. My personal favorite hyper is Candemonium at Hershey Park. This hyper, while it's short, it has some of the best airtime moments on any coaster. I love the whip at the end with the outer vague turn, and it has some great bends. The best element by far is the first airtime hill. The train flies through this element and it has some of the best airtime on any coaster. I remember floating out of my seat for about 4 seconds in a strong pop before flying back down. 13. Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. The best part of the ride is the first S-bend. Mystic Timbers is focused on basically everything besides inversions. The layout consists of many twists in the middle along with some fast-paced airtime hills. The second half has the best airtime in the park. Many ejector airtime hills are in the second half along with the trick track at the end, which provides a lot of whip. An even whippier element occurs and is actually the best element on the ride. The train hauls into the first half of the ride and goes straight up and into an airtime hill. After a short ejector pop, the train whips around in an S-bend. This bend launches riders out of their seats while throwing them from side to side, which causes for the best element on the coaster. 12. Maverick at Cedar Point. The best element is the Stangle Dive. Maverick's main focus is snappy transitions, which is made obvious by the layout. The first half consists of many whippy moments and some strong ejector pops. After 2 inversions and a launch, the train enters the second half. The second half is a lot speedier than the first half. After a snap to the side, the train enters the best element. This element is a sudden whip upside down. Riders start by banking to the right and then popping up. Afterwards, the train whips to the left in one of the best transitions on any coaster. One more violent whip to the side ends this intense element. 11. Phantom's Revenge at Kennywood. The best element is the Double Down. Phantom's Revenge is pretty unique as it has a bigger second drop than the first. This is because the train dives down a large ravine. After a big dive down the hill, the train rockets back up and goes through many sharp airtime hills. These airtime hills are full of quick ejector pops. In between each pop is a very tight valley full of positives. One element in particular is very intense. This best element is the Double Down. A sharp ejector pop occurs before diving down and back up in rapid succession. After this positive-filled moment, the train drops back down in another sharp airtime hill. This element is very forceful, and it's always a blast. 10. Millennium Force at Cedar Point. The best element is the second airtime hill. Millennium Force at Cedar Point isn't meant for intensity or airtime, it's meant for speed. Millennium keeps its speed very well through the ride and it hauls into the brake run. The overbank turns, while not too intense, still provide some good laterals and positives. My favorite element is definitely the second airtime hill. The train flies into this element at high speeds and rockets over the floater hill. This element will provide the most sustained airtime in the park, and it's a blast every time. 9. Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. The best element is the Trick Track Double Up. Storm Chaser is the first RMC on the list. It is one of the shorter RMCs, but it packs a punch. This ride is full of wacky airtime hills and inversions. The first drop is a barrel roll heading downwards, similar to Iron Gwazi's Death Roll. The first airtime hill is very strong, and the overbank provides some good Gs. After a corkscrew and an airtime hill, the train enters the best element. This element, called a Trick Track Double Up, is similar to Mystic Timber's finale. I love this element. Popping out of your seat in a strong way and being thrown to the right and left in rapid succession is so much fun. 8. Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. The best element is the Twisted Airtime Hill. Intimidator 305 is the most intense coaster in the States. Take the first turn, for example. People sometimes black out when going around this sharp bend at 90 miles per hour. After a sustained ejector hill, the train dives into the best part of the ride. The best part is when the train goes through a positive-filled turn. Afterwards, riders whip out of the turn and a quick ejector pop. Right after this airtime hill is another violent whip to the side. This element is similar to the Trick Track Double Up in a way, where a whip leads into a lateral-filled airtime pop. 7. Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. The best element is the Twisted Airtime Hill. Twisted Timbers is quite a small RMC. It's not as tall or fast as Steel Vengeance, but it packs a big punch. A barrel roll drop leads into a tight turn and 3 back-to-back airtime hills, each providing some incredible sustained floater. A cutback leads into a Trick Track Double Up, this time not being the best part of the ride. The best element is directly after the Trick Track Double Up, and it's a Twisted Airtime Hill. After a head chopper, the train takes a tight turn to the right. Whipping to the side, the train pops up in a great airtime moment. After the quick ejector pop, riders dive back down through the structure in another tight turn. The mix of laterals and a whippy airtime moment make this the best element in the park. 6. Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. The best element is the launch. The shortest coaster on the list is Dragster, so why does it place so high? This is one of the most intense coasters in the world for just the launch alone. The launch, also the best element, is super fast and intense. After some lights flash and countdown, the train accelerates to 120 miles per hour in less than 4 seconds. This acceleration causes everyone's stomachs to twist around for over 5 seconds. After this occurs, the train goes through a positive-filled valley before rocketing up the 400-foot-tall top hat. Passengers dive down towards the ground in an airtime moment while twisting around. This top hat is phenomenal, but nothing beats the intensity of that launch. 5. Voyage at Holiday World. The best element is the hill into the Spaghetti Bowl. Voyage is the longest coaster on the list. It has over 6,000 feet of track and one of the biggest wooden coaster drops. After the floater-filled drop, guests take a journey through the woods over many different airtime moments, the best of which is right before the turnaround. After a tight valley, the train goes through a massive floater hill. This is the best airtime on the ride, as it's very strong and is sustained. Even though the other hills have good air, it doesn't compare to this. What makes it the best is the tunnel right after the hill. While flying out of your seat, riders dive into a tunnel, and it feels like you will hit the top of the tunnel. This is the best head chopper I've ever experienced, and it's directly after an airtime hill, making this the best element in the park. 4. Lightning Rod at Dollywood. The best element is the wave turn. Lightning Rod at Dollywood is still the only launched wooden coaster. It's full of wacky airtime moments and very intense valleys. After a fast acceleration and a floater-filled drop, the train enters my favorite element on the coaster. A wave turn occurs, where the train banks 90 degrees on its side. The turn extends outwards, causing for a sustained pop of floater airtime on your side. This is one of the craziest and best airtime moments I've experienced, and being sideways makes it 10 times better. 3. Sky Rush at Hershey Park. The best element is the first airtime hill. Sky Rush is the most intense ride in the Appalachian Mountains. Why? Well, the train goes ridiculously fast through every single turn in airtime hill. While the restraints can hurt, I've never had an issue with them. After a wacky first drop with a jolt in the middle, the train heads up into the first airtime hill. Passengers go through this hill at over 60 miles per hour and get thrown out of their seats. This violent ejector pop is the most sustained and least painful on the ride, making it the best. 2. Fury 325 at Carowinds. The best element is the treble clef. Fury 325 is such a great coaster. It has everything you need. From high-speed turns full of positives and massive airtime hills full of sustained floater. The best element on the ride is definitely the treble clef. After taking a sharp turn upwards full of positives, the train banks on its side. Afterwards, riders pop out sideways in an airtime moment before being thrown back down underground. This is a whippy sideways airtime moment that cannot be experienced anywhere else. Following this great element is a dive underground, which provides a great head chopper. This sequence of elements is out of control and is the best in the entire park. 1. Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. The best element is the dive into the structure. While most people will say the best element is the Outer Bank or Top Hat, I would have to disagree. In my opinion, the best element is the Twisted Dive. After all of the crazy shenanigans in the first half, the train dives down through a double up. After this double up, riders are thrown up and out of their seats while turning. While in the air, riders are flung to the other side in a very whippy airtime moment. Added on top of this is a large dive into the structure, which causes a surprising head chopper. On my first ride, you can hear the entire train scream at this element. This airtime hill is surprising and whippy, and it's my personal favorite element on any coaster. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, subscribe and leave a like. Comment down below your favorite coaster element, and make sure to join my Google Classroom. There's a link in the description. Email me if you have questions or concerns, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day.